Hello there and welcome to the craft store and welcome to this watercolour painting lesson with me, Matthew Palmer. Today we're going to paint in a beautiful, colourful butterfly. No sketching, one brush, three colours and a bit of watercolour paper and you're ready to get started. Let's just start off by going through the actual materials. What we've got here is a sheet of watercolour paper, a fairly small sheet of watercolour paper. I've stuck this to a board with some masking tape. It's not essential that you do that, but it just makes the process a little bit easier. I've stuck it to a board and it keeps it nice and tight. And then down here at the palette, we have three primary colours. What we've actually got is a blue, a orange and a red. These are primary colours, we can see them there. There's a little squirt. Now if the paint has gone a little bit dry, it's not a problem, just add water. That's all you need to do is just simply add water and the paint will come alive. And this nice plastic material is also great for mixing the actual colour as well. Here we've got the water pot and a size 6 worker watercolour brush, which is absolutely perfect for doing the painting. So let's get started. What we'll do, folks, is we'll start off very simply by wetting the entire sheet of paper. And the reason we do this because it allows the paint to flow, allows it to mix, and it just creates a more of a soft background effect. It really works well. So plenty of water. Don't be afraid. Watercolour paper is designed to hold water and stay wet for the longest possible time as well. Beautiful. So a couple of coats of water is a good idea. Just make sure that the paper is nice and shiny. And once it is, the first thing we're going to do down at the palette is mix up a dark green. So we'll take a bit of the orange and we'll just lift it into a blob of water. We can just kind of see that there. And then we'll take some blue. And a tiny bit of blue goes a long way for this kind of thing. So you can see you start to get this nice kind of olive green forming. A little bit of paint goes a long, long way in watercolours. And what we'll do is we'll get that brush nicely loaded, we'll lay it flat to the paper, and we're just going to splodge. We're going to just dance around the paper, not literally with the brush on the paper. If you want to dance around the paper, you can do. Whatever turns you on, I suppose. But it'll give you some inspiration to pop this on and just basically spot this background and it will give us some interest. It'll take the white away, not necessarily working all the way to the edge for this. Beautiful. And that's enough, and that's what we can call a watercolour vignette. Nice faded edges. You can see examples around the studio of watercolour vignettes as well. Now in the centre of this, I want to bring in some red. Imagine the flowers, the bud layer that the actual butterfly is perched on. Is that the right word? Perched, probably. What we'll do is we'll take some of the red here, a tiniest little bit of red. Such a rich colour, this beautiful, high quality watercolour paint that we're using here, folks. A little bit goes a long way, and it's a similar thing. It's a similar thing. It's misty, it's spotty. Now, if you notice, that paint is spread and it's running down the paper. If I tilt it forward, you can see the light is not reflecting there. So remove the excess on tissue if you need to. That's just kitchen paper, and then you can just basically spot in a nice, simple, straightforward background, bit of foliage. Imagine it's an out of focus plant or flower in the background there. We can add more to this at a later stage if we need to as well. Kind of leaving a space for where the butterfly is going to go. Now, the paper is still nicely workable at this point, which is a good thing because watercolour paper is designed to hold as much moisture as possible. So you can see I'm just keep picking a bit extra colour up there. If I just bring the palette up here, you can see I'm taking little bits of colour, even giving it that little tap on the kitchen paper as well. And I'm just giving it very gentle little taps around those edges. This is something you can come back to also at a later stage. And what that'll do is that'll just take away the harshness from the background, so it's not pure white paper. If we look at this, you can see I've left a space where we can put the butterfly as well, which is exactly what we're going to start to do now. Now, it doesn't really matter if the paper is a bit damp, but if it's completely wet, then give it a good dry with a hairdryer. But at this stage, this paper for me, it's just about the right time. Let's grab some nice orange. Right in the centre here, I've got a splodge of natural orange, this is called. So this is a nice rich orange. Look how beautiful that colour is. Can give it a bit of a tilt up. Look beautiful. That one is actually natural orange we've got there, but any orange colour would work. You can even mix an orange from a yellow and red, but look at the consistency. Look how strong that paint is compared to the green and the red as well. Let's take this colour and let's draw the starting point. Draw with a paintbrush the actual starting point of the butterfly. Now, what we'll do is pop the wings in first. Nice and strong, almost dry piece of paper. We'll come straight down on an angle, pointing down to what, about 8 o'clock, something like that. And then we'll bring this right over, bring it right over, right to the edge of the paper. And we will bring this out here. And we'll pop another line, which we will curve very loosely, but you can see how this thing is slowly taking shape. We will continue these curves and we'll take it off the edge of the paper. And then what we'll do, very simply, with the orange, is we'll fill all of this section in. Now, if the paint gets a bit dry, just add water. If your background is really wet at this point and the paint is spreading too much, all you simply do is just give it a few moments to dry. Use a hairdryer or something similar, or put the kettle on, whatever works for you. And then we'll take this all the way across. Again, making sure we've got these nice peaks. This brush has got a lovely point on it, so it really gives me plenty of chance to fill these areas in it and just be a little bit more precise. I can make the most of the shape of the wings here. Now, that's one side of the butterfly, which is a good starting point. Back to the palette, we'll do exactly the same, but mirror, we'll do a direct mirror and do the side. Tiny bit of water in your palette, nice, dig around in the orange. These little spots of watercolour will do 2, 3 watercolours, if not more, easily. So we'll take some of the orange. We'll leave a gap. We'll leave a gap this time, and we'll do a mirror. We'll do a mirror as much as we possibly can. Now, at this point, don't be afraid to rotate your board around. I'm working on an easel. It's not that common that people would work on easels. Normally, you'd be sat at a desk or your lap or something. Easels make sense for doing these kind of teaching style. So rotating the board is a good way of getting that nice angle and trying his best loosely to match. And it's repeating what we did last time, putting the 2 lines. Measure with your fingers, if that helps. Take one side, move it to the other. And then down here again, we'll do those nice sort of saw teeth style edge. Bring that right over. You can't go wrong with this. Draw in with a paintbrush, and then, as before, fill it all in. So a beautiful, vibrant orange is a good starting point for this butterfly. We can spend time tweaking. If we turn it back the right way as we're blocking in, take a step back, have a look, make sure the 2 wings are loosely kind of matching. They've not got to be precise by any means, as long as they loosely are matching. It's the detail that makes the difference. And the biggest problem people have with any kind of painting is, especially as a beginner, is sticking this thing through to the end. You need to keep calm and carry on, finish the picture off, because every little brush stroke makes the world of difference, and that is so important, especially on something like this. You've got to finish it off, folks. Every painting has its ups and downs, but that's a good starting point. We've got plenty of detail. I'm just spending a moment just refining these edges, making sure I'm happy with the shape. It's nature, so it's not too precise, but that's looking good to me. Perfect. And then what we'll do is we'll paint in the central body of the butterfly. Now, this is where we start to mix colours. So far, all the colours we've been using are very much straight from the palette. Yes, we've mixed the green, but now let's take it a bit further and mix something nice and strong. We're going to go grey. Now, grey, it might seem a bit of a dull colour, but it is the most important colour. Every picture you see at the back of me in the studio has grey in it somewhere. Shadows. Look around the room you sat in watching this video. Look at the shadows that surround the studio. Look at the shadows of my hand waving around. Grey is the colour of shadows, and very, very common colour, probably the most used colour. So how do you mix grey from a red, a orange and a blue? Quite straightforward thing to do actually. What you do is you start with the blue, quite strong, quite heavy for the blue. Don't be afraid to get plenty. Just the moisture that was in the brush was all I used here. So it's the blue first. Pop a little bit of the red into this and you'll see purple appear. You get that sort of slight purple tinge coming through. And then we add the orange to this, and the orange will slowly turn the colour into a grey. Little bits, practice this mix, it's so important. Can you see each little bit of orange darkens that colour, and it almost goes, not black, but it goes to like a dark sort of grey colour. Perfect for shadows. Using a grey off the shelf like Payne's grey, it contains black pigment, it's too strong. So that's definitely a colour to practice because it's a colour what you'll use a lot. To get the best detail out of this brush as well, think about rotating the brush through your fingers like this as you draw it through the colour in your palette. So it's rotating. Let's do that on the palette. We'll bring it up here and we'll rotate it through the colour. So it's twisting the tip, as you can see here, which is giving a beautiful detail. Hold this thing like a pencil, write with it, draw with it, just enjoy the process. Let's paint in the body of the butterfly. We'll start off slightly overlapping the wings. We'll do one side at a time, and we'll do a bit of an egg shape, coming around. And then what we'll do is we'll fill that in, we'll fill it in. So you've blocked it in. Just think of these as oval shapes, elliptical shapes. Let's pop a slightly smaller version of the same at the top. Block it in. So you can see I've just put this little sort of smaller egg shape there, and then you get the two eyes just creeping in. This is where you really play with the detail of the brush. Okay, so we've got the top section of the body, you've got the head and you've got the eyes. Then what we'll do is we'll use this beautiful point. I'll bring this forward so we can see better, and we'll just pop in a couple of little lines. Look how fine you can get the brush. Okay, and then we're going to bring out some of the antennas. I believe that's what they're called. I might be wrong in saying this. We'll do the same up here as well. So you can get the craft show on your TV. You need them, don't you? And then what we'll do is we'll paint in the back section, which kind of is a similar elongated, I want to call it more of a cigar shape, if we can mention cigars. Too late, eh? We'll bring that in, and then we'll fill in. I'll tell you what, we'll call it a petal shape instead. That's better. It's a petal. It's like the end of a paintbrush as well. We'll fill it in, block it in. Look how nice that grey is. You can't go wrong with a bit of grey. 50 shades of grey you can get out of those three colours. And what we'll do here is we will just make sure that we've still got this rich shade of grey, talking about 50 shades. So I'm remixing more of the same because we're going to use it. So blue and the red, remember? So you get purple and then spots of orange, and the colour gets darker every time. If you put too much orange, it goes brown. Put some blue with it. If you put too much red, it goes purple. Put more orange with it. So you'll soon learn it, but the more you do watercolour painting or any painting, the more you'll realise that that colour is so important. Back to the picky then, what we'll do now is we'll start to do the nice detail. We're going to separate the wings first, okay? And it's going to come down with this grey line. You can smell the fear, bring it down. Or we can smell the excitement, should I say. We'll put that line in. We'll do the same on the other side. This is a time where I'd think about rotating the board. And then we'll match that same line. Notice I've blocked it in a little bit in the corners. So I've popped in these two sections. Bring this back round again. What we'll do here, because that colour is strong, it's a heavy mix, it doesn't matter how long it takes for you to do this next stage. So please take your time with this. Simply clean your brush, get some kitchen paper, give it a couple of taps. So you've got a damp brush, but not a dry brush. You've got a moist brush. Check it. Is it me or is it moist? That's ready for action. And what we'll do is we'll literally come here and we'll take that grey and we'll move it away from that line, feathering it or blending it, moving the colour. You can see how it's disappearing almost into the wing. Slightly curve it on the corner where it goes into the wing. What you do then is clean the brush a second time or a third time, however many times you need to do this. Just keep refreshing the brush, give it a couple of quick taps on there so you've got a clean, moist brush. Back to that edge and just take your time, moving it in one direction, which is what I'm doing here, until it kind of disappears. And then repeat on the other side. Water, 2 taps, and then it's just a case of putting the brush into this and moving the colour. You can't go wrong, really. It does help if the background orange is slightly dry, but there's a risk that it can lift a little bit of colour off, but that's all part of the texture of this thing. Look, I've separated the 2 sections on each wing, okay? And that's all done with blending water, okay? Let's grab some more of that same colour, shall we? Remember the rotation that we did? Twist it, rotate it through the palette. It really works nice and it gives you a chance to get a lovely point on your brush, okay? And then we'll surround this thing in detail. First of all, we're going to paint a thin line. Just practice holding your brush like a pencil. Try and sort of take the mindset away that it's a brush, because if you think it's a brush, you tend to hold it here and it's hard to control the pressure. Hold the metal bit, the ferrule of the brush, and you can really lean in, rotate the board, get that nice detail. We'll start off by going around the edge here. A thin line on the edge. And then we're going to put those beautiful markings in, which start off, it gradually gets wider, that line, gradually gets wider with the grey, picking up more colour there. And it comes round here, right to the edge. You can really take your time here. Simply outline that edge, make it as neat and as tidy as you like. And then block in the section. So you've basically done a nice wide outline on the tip of the wing. What you'll do then is you'll pick up the same colour and you'll randomly fill it in. And when I say randomly, that's because every so often you get a little bit of light. Can you see that little bit of light I'm leaving? It's got a bit of a spider web thing going off here, so you're filling it in. It's not going to be a precise thing by any means, but you loosely block it in, loosely fill it in. I'm just mixing more colour here. So again, it's the 3 colours all nicely mixed together. Beautiful. The blue, the red, and the orange, of course. Brill. Rotate the brush through the palette, remember that one, that helps to give detail. And then this bottom section the same. So we'll start off by outlining. A nice outline. And then exactly the same going off here. We'll fill it in all the way up here. It kind of almost meets that first one. And then every so often, as before, leave some light bits. These are very random. They don't have to be precise at all. Brilliant. Now again, this is this good strong grey colour. The thicker, the better with this mix. Take your time on the edge, get the detail, lean on your paper, smashing. And then let's do the same on the opposite side, but for this I want to be rotating the board this way. It's so much easier to do this, you know, it gives you more control over the brush and it stops you straining to reach to those areas. So here then, we've got the whole wing on show here, so we'll come along the top edge, all the way across the top edge, and all the way around the edge. Beautiful. In fact, what we'll do here is we'll continue, because the whole wing's on show, we can continue the entire outline. So if you look at this, we've just done one complete outline around that wing to start with. Looking good. Then we'll repeat what we've just done on the opposite side. We'll start to fill this thing in. So gradually make this wider, this first line. That's the first thing we do. And then we block in, just like we did on the opposite side. Come along here, quite loosely. Keep picking up more colour on that brush, keep rotating the tip of the bristle so you get that nice rich colour. Brill. And then we'll block in just as before, leaving the occasional light piece. Brill. And then we'll continue around. Exactly the same as what we've just done. So, working along this edge, keep picking up more colour, mix more colour if you need to. So we're just going to fill in, leaving those little light bits. Excellent. Now, at this point, folks, we can rotate this thing back the right way. We can have a look at it. We can step back, we can take a breath, and we can decide how many little bits of tweaks that you want to do to the design. If you look at this side, you can see that wing curves underneath. This one doesn't, so I can pop a little curve there. We're trying to loosely mirror. So you can see I put the two little sort of curves here where it goes under the wing. It's a bit of a mirror when it comes to doing butterflies. That old-fashioned trick that we did at school where we used to get paint one side and fold it in half to make a butterfly is kind of true. They are quite symmetrical items. I'm back down to the palette and I'm making sure, and you can do the same, make sure that you've got a nice chunk of colour. So the blue, the red and the orange. We're looking good here. Now that's gone quite brown. Can we see it's quite brown compared to the grey? So what we'll do is we'll put more blue with it, because brown and blue will make a lovely grey. See the rotation again through the fingers. Get that beautiful point on your brush, don't be afraid. And now you can take your time, add some little bits of extra darkness, come back to the main body, put some extra texture there. So if you go over this again, can we see I'm painting dark paint on a dark area? You can put little sort of segments here to it. Give it some detail. It's optional, this, I think, but it adds that little bit of life to it, gives it a bit of texture, okay? Inside the wings as well, there's that beautiful, I got excited then, I stuttered. There's this beautiful sort of dark markings on the wings. Let's put those on. Lovely technique for this, it's called dry brush. Let me tell you what dry brush is. It's picking the paint up in the same way, but it's getting the kitchen paper and it's wiping off some of the excess colour on the tissue there, yeah? And to help this random pattern, if you take your fingers and give your brush a little bit of a, give it a little bit of a splay bristle, and the brush goes spiky. That will give you much more detail. We'll start off by brushing out. Practice this one, folks, on a scrap piece of paper. Can you see I'm brushing out? If you tilt it forward, you can basically skim the paper from the body. Look at that beautiful texture that you're creating just simply by scratching the surface. If you pick up more colour, simply do the same, wipe it off, give a display, and then do the same on the opposite wing. Slightly going to rotate the board here just so you can see clearer. So just here, see that's a nice comfortable painting angle there. Notice I'm leaning on the paper and I'm scuffing the page, scuffing the wing. You've all seen that beautiful texture on a butterfly's wing. And watercolour paper, this watercolour paper here has got a textured surface. I can do some little bits on the edges as well. And it's all to do with this gorgeous little thing called dry brush. But it really adds life. And this is what I was saying at the beginning of this picture, this project. It's all about seeing it through to the end, sticking with it, and taking your time on these particular sections. Pause the video if you need to, you know, and look back at it, and it's just a great way to work. Look how lovely that is, that gorgeous. It's the same technique that you'd apply on a flower petal as well. So if you're painting a nice petal, flower, you could do that same thing. Pick the paint up on the tissue, splay those bristles. Practice does make perfect. Such a common technique called dry brush, okay? Which is how we're going to do the spots on side the wings as well. So we'll pop the butterfly back in the right position. Certainly is taking shape. Now what a difference from those first few orange lines that we started with. Brilliant. So just enjoy the process. Enjoy the process, add texture, add character. And I've picked up more colour on the tissue and a slight broken bristle again. Splay the bristles. Let's put some markings on. We'll start off by almost using the side of the brush. If we get close in here, can you see that I'm kind of using the side of the brush to scrape the surface? So it really leaves just the odd little bit of texture behind. And I'm painting with this part of the brush as opposed to the tip, okay? Brilliant. And we'll pop these markings in. These are quite essential. And you can be fairly random with these. This is the same way that you'd put stripes on a tiger or spots on a leopard. Yeah, it's not quite as dangerous painting stripes on a butterfly than painting spots on a leopard. So just be a bit careful. Make sure you get permission from the owner of the leopard. We here at the craft show do not authorise painting spots on animals. Let's come to this piece here and let's paint in some stripes coming down here as well. Exactly the same, folks. You can have some fun with this. They're almost little diagonal brush strokes, aren't they? What I'm applying here. Make sure the paint's nice and strong. Don't be afraid of the dark. And imagine there's a third one that's just off the side of the picture. Beautiful. Revisit them, make sure the colour's dark. Give them a second coat if you need to. There's no problems whatsoever. Taking shape, folks, it is. It's gonna shoot off the page and fly away. That'd be good if we could do that. Let's mix up some more colour. Let's get back to the palette, folks, because I'd love to show you again that grey. And I talk about grey a lot. It's not the most exciting colour, but it is one of the most important ones. So let's recap. A little bit of water. You've got the beautiful blue there. There's the blue. Strong blue. Tiny bit of red. Look how little paint I've used. Very, very little amount of paint we've used there. Bit of red. Make sure you don't put too much red in. And then, of course, add the orange. And you can make it as dark as you want to. There we go, brilliant. We have the colour, we're all set. And again, on the tissue, slight press of your brush, and you're ready for some more markings. So on this side here, pretty much identical to be fair, so we'll start off with the 3 stripes down the back. So we're just bringing that down here, and then a 3rd one. Again, if you need to go darker, give it a 2nd coat, but every time, pick the paint up, wipe off that little bit of excess. So I'm matching this one here now, look. When I say matching, I'm being quite loose with the term, you know, it's not exact by any means. There's the 2 little spots here on the edge as well. I'll pop one just here. And there's one just there as well. Brilliant. And while that brush is still active and it's got a bit of colour on, I'm just going to go in and make sure that I'm happy with, pick up some more paint there. I'm happy with how the colour looks, happy with the texture of these markings. Add extra little bits of flicks into the wings, following the direction of the wing. It's quite a good thing to do. Brilliant. And then we'll put some markings on these 2 wings at the bottom. We'll turn this the right way. And again, just relax in, take your time, have a look, make sure you're fairly happy that you've got, not necessarily matching the markings, but the same amount of markings. You know, there's 2 here, 2 there, 1 there, and so on. They've not got to be exact, as you can see. Loosely is really what it's about. What we'll do then is we'll come down here and do some markings as well. And we'll put a little triangular one underneath the wing there. So it kind of tucks under one of the 2 segments. Same technique, paint, tissue, slight press. The more confident you get with that dry brush technique, the less you worry about applying it. It's quite an easy technique, and like we mentioned, it's using the side of the brush rather than the tip, because the tip will give you a point every time, whereas this method will give you more of a sort of textured line. Brilliant. So you can see I've loosely matched those 2. More paint, more dabs, and then we'll bring another one down here. Little sort of triangular shapes, really. Again, you can revisit any of them. Revisit any of them at this stage. Revisit any of them and just make sure that you're happy how they look. Are they dark enough? If not, make them a little bit stronger. Give it a 2nd coat of colour. Brilliant. Nice, that's looking good. It's nice to lean back as well, you know, walk back a few steps, take a look at the butterfly, make sure you're happy with how the paint's gone in, how it all curves, loosely matching the 2 sides, as we mentioned. That's something that I do a lot when I'm painting, lean back, have a look at it from a distance. It is a nice way of working. So I'm just now adding the finishing touches to the actual dark parts of the butterfly, which is mainly ensuring that the dark spots are okay. Add any extra ones that you want to, but if you put a dark spot on one side, loosely mirror it on the other side. Give or take. It's not going to be precise. Wonderful. Let's leave butterfly to dry, and then what we'll do is we'll add a little bit more work on the background, just while we've got a few minutes, okay? So a clean brush. Common question, how do you clean the palette? Well, this particular palette is a nice textured plastic surface, great for mixing. It's got a very fine, almost a matte texture to this. It's dead easy to add water to this. You don't need to change the water's okay, and then you can see that it cleans very well. Because what I need to do is have a little dig around the back of the red and take a pale red, like so, on its own. That's the crimson or the natural red. And then secondly, we're going to have another little bit of that colour, just here, and pop a little bit of blue into that, just a touch, so you get a little bit of a purpley tinge. Very pale colours. It's not a bad idea to actually test your colours on a scrap piece of paper as well. So imagine the flower at the background, grab some of the red, very pale, and let's get spotty. You can do as much or as little as you like, basically. And I'm just going to spot in. I'm thinking Buddleia, which has got lots of very fine pink, or the different colour Buddleias, of course. There's purples and blues as well. I believe there's whites as well. But just very loosely spotting in. This is the colour that's more pink. More pink, this one, so little dots. Both sides. Refresh the colour if you need to. Pick up more paint. The secret is to be very pale with this colour. Just adds a bit of interest to the picture. Now, that slightly darker colour what I mixed, which is the one with the blue in, I'll pick up some of this. It's just a slightly darker tone. It's got the tiniest amount of blue. You can just about make that out. A little tap on tissue is not a bad idea as well at that point, just to remove that excess colour, and then we can pop in a few darker. Now, the darker colour, the one with more blue, for me, this would go in where the flower, the plant, almost disappears and meets the butterfly. Can you see I'm putting little spots? It's optional. It's almost like you're putting a shadow. A Buddleia is almost like a cone of flowers, a huge cone. And you get a dark side of this and you get a light side of it. So I'm adding some of the darker spots to this, you can see that. But very incidental, both sides, very out of focus, in the distance, that kind of thing. It's quite a relaxing painting to do, this one, so I hope you enjoy doing this, folks. It really is a nice one to do. No sketching, just a nice, enjoyable, colourful project. So you can see I've sort of darkened one side a touch. You could add more red, add more of the shadowy side to it. It's up to you. At the end of the day, it's your picture. I'm just going to put a few little spots of red over this side here. Notice I'm being a bit smaller with my spots because I want them to be a little bit more out of focus. Dotting away. And it gives the butterfly a nice base to sit on, which is perfect for this. Beautiful. Remember the green we mixed for the background? Let's see if we can get some more green. We'll have a dig around in the orange. So there's the orange. And we'll put the blue. A little bit stronger with the colour, not much, just a touch stronger. So it's a dark green. There you go, perfect. You remember that thing where we rotated the brush? Well, if you rotate it through your tissue this time, rotate it through the tissue, it gives you a nice point to your brush and it gives you a chance to get some little bits of detail. So imagine, and these are optional things to add, folks, imagine a little leaf coming in the bottom here, a pointy leaf shape, clean your brush, give it those famous 2 Matthew Palmer taps on the tissue, and then use water to make that disappear into the, make it disappear. These are optional, not necessarily needed, but it's whatever takes your fancy here. I often think that a couple of little faded leaves around is quite nice. You can decide. Probably just going to create one in just here, actually. Rotate the board just for a second. I'm going to bring one just on the edge coming in. I think that'd be quite nice. Just bring that one in. Just add them wherever you feel. Anything goes. And then again, the water, the 2 taps, just exactly the same, folks. Be as creative as you like with these, but wait for it, the joke of the day. You've got to know when to leave it alone. Church bells, wind, tumbleweed. It's all good. It's all good. Just going to pop a little flick in the centre of the leaf. Can you see them little flicks? Optional little flicks. It just gives the veins to the leaf. Spit and polish, that's what that is, a bit of spit and polish. Talking about spit and polish, let's put some light in the butterfly to finish off. How do you put light in watercolours? 2 ways. Use water and tissue. Clean the brush. Take your fingers and pinch the brush. Mould it. Mould the brush into a point. Look at that. Beautiful. So you have a moist, pointy brush. There's nothing better. And what we'll do is we'll go in and we'll pop some light down the back. So it's lifting out colour, removing paint, washing paint out after you've just spent half an hour putting it in. And what we'll do is we'll work across. And then with dry tissue, you press it, and look at that. It puts light on it. Can you see? Do it again. Press it, press it, press it. Can you see? Here and on there. Lovely thing to do. Little spots in the eyes, excuse me, just to give a bit of life there. Subtle with a silent B, and then we're going to also lift a little bit of orange off, where one wing meets the other. Look how that lifts it, instant. Compare the 2 sides. Same thing again, just using the water on the tip of the brush. Bring it in. Wipe that off. Look how beautiful that takes the colour off. Anywhere that you feel a couple of little lights, areas, following the contour of the wing, I always feel it adds a bit of interest. So to finish off, we'll just pop a bevel mount on the picture, which always makes such a huge difference, and it really gives a beautiful professional feel to your watercolour painting. What an absolute pleasure that was to do, folks. I really hope you enjoyed painting along, having a go yourself. It was a beautiful, relaxed painting for me to do. Give it a go. You can't go wrong. Just enjoy it. Keep the paint flowing. And I'll see you next time for more watercolour painting on the Craft Store.